Much, Elizabeth. And thanks for being our tech guru for the conference. Just a couple other reminders. You might want to change your view to speaker settings so that you don't have to scroll through as people are popping up to deliver different portions of the presentation. And I also want to mention that you can come and go until 11:25. But if you're going to attend one of today's workshops, you will need to be in the room before it begins and cannot rejoin if you drop for any reason or leave. And again, the link to the schedule is in the chat window if anybody needs the schedule to pick out their workshops for later in the day. And again, for those of you just joining us, my name is Deonda Shen, and I'm the chair of the Council for Human Rights this year. And now we'd like to give you a little bit of information about the Council for Human Rights to let you know why we're here and what we do. The council was formed in 1989 by the county commissioners in response to a cross-burning incident in North Kitsap. This was not the first incident of racism in Kitsap County. The council has developed a timeline of such events, which is available on our website for anyone who's interested in more of that history. The council's vision is that Kitsap County will be a caring, supportive, safe community that values each individual and celebrates each individual's differences and recognizes the importance of each person's contribution to the community. The mission of the council is twofold: to advise county government and the community on issues related to discrimination, violence, and harassment that is based on race, national origin, religion, age, gender expression, sexual orientation, disability, or economic status. And number two, to promote equitable treatment of all people and reduce prejudice through education, resource referrals, and advocacy. Human rights have become a really significant part of our collective discourse in the last few years, and this council is endeavoring to positively contribute to that discourse. This work is crucial in our community, and the engagement of the community in both the discourse and the work is essential for us to make headway in healing the divisions in our community and ensuring that none are deprived of their human rights. It takes the village, all of us, to accomplish this, and your being here is important. And we are so grateful that you chose to join us today. We are also immensely grateful to the county commissioners. Commissioner Gelder is unable to join us today, but Commissioners Garrido and Wolf are here with us, and we are thanking all three of you for your ongoing support of this council, your reliance upon this council, for your objective consideration of the sometimes difficult statements that we need to issue in keeping with our mission, and for your support and presence at this conference today. Thank you very much. We will now quickly introduce ourselves, those of us who serve on this council. Again, I'm Deonda Shen, and I am appointed to serve District 1, which is North Kitsap.
I'm Susie Beal. I am an at-large member, which means I don't represent any one particular district. And I am the vice chair of the council this year, and I live in Bremerton. And I'll pass that to Erin.
Hi, everybody. I'm so happy this day is here. My name is Erin Lanham. I use she, her pronouns, and I am the secretary of the council. I represent District 1, and I live in Suquamish.
Hello again, I'm Annie Forsman Adams. I'm a Suquamish tribal member. I represent District 1, and I also live in Suquamish. And I'll pass it to Jim.
Hi, I'm Jim Cash. I represent District 1, and I live on Bainbridge Island. And welcome all.
Good morning. My name is Christina Barone. I represent District 2, and I live in Olalla. And I will pass on to Beth.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for being with us today. I'm Bethan, and I use she, her pronouns, and I'm also in District 2. I'll pass it over to Daryl Thomas.
Hello, everyone. I'm Daryl Thomas. I represent District 3. I live in the Lynette area. and I'm going to pass it on to Elizabeth.
Hi, my name is Elizabeth Holmes. I use she, her pronouns, and I represent District 3. I live in the Bremerton area as well. So I will pass it on to Teresa.
Hello, my name is Teresa Swope, and I am an at-large. I also live in Paulsbo, and I use she, her pronouns, and I will pass it to Marcy.
I'm Marcy Mathis. I am an at-large member, but I do live in Central Kitsap, and I use she, her pronouns.
And we have an additional council member who's unable to be here with us. She's receiving her master's degree today. Heather Moritz lives in East Bremerton and is appointed to represent District 3, and we want to say congratulations to Heather on this milestone. Thank you, all of you council members, for the time and energy that you contribute to this council and service to our community. Now I am thrilled to get to introduce Representative Tara Simmons. She is the state representative for District 23. She's a mother, an RN, an attorney, a civil rights activist, and a national leader in the fight for criminal justice reform. But she is exceptional. She is also the first convicted felon elected to the Washington State Legislature. In her life, she faced some of the biggest barriers to success, from poverty to opioid use disorder to incarceration. With support from her community, she was able to overcome these barriers and not only succeed, but excel. Along the way, she became a tireless advocate for systems reform and founded the Civil Survival Project, a nonprofit that provides legal and policy advocacy to help formerly incarcerated people better reintegrate and succeed. Today's conference is focused on restorative practices, which include restorative justice. And I cannot think of a better leader, one who has lived experience and leads by example, to join us as we explore this topic today. Representative Simmons, thank you for being here with us today.
Oh, thank you so much, Dion. It is so wonderful to see all of you today. So many of you are my dear friends. Whether we get to see each other in person or on social media, I feel your love and it's your strength that gives me the resilience to continue to fight every single day in the legislature for restorative justice at the end of everything. It's all about restorative justice. So it is my honor to be with you this morning. I was thinking about, what I wanted to talk about, and, accountability is something that's really important to me and a part of restorative justice. And I just want to share with you all today, while you're, digging into this topic and continuing to build upon our work. I think about accountability, and I think about what has helped me change as somebody who has caused significant harm. I have 9 felony convictions. I absolutely have harmed people throughout my life, starting in very early childhood. I think I was first convicted at 13 years old for an assault on a peer. I sold drugs in this community. I have stolen. I have harmed a lot of people. And, what caused that is all back to adverse childhood experiences and the first chance that I never had. And, that's really what motivated me to run for the legislature, is to make sure that our community has what they need to begin with. All of your work that you do to fight to end racism, to fight to end poverty, I love Kitsap Strong, and that they're here today and are really the backbone of our community and addressing adverse childhood experiences, and all of the collective work that we do through Kitsap Erase and showing up for racial justice, and the NAACP and the tribe, and everybody here has a role. And I love our community because we are moving forward in a shared vision. But like I said, I was somebody who caused a lot of harm, and I've been harmed a lot. I didn't just wake up at 13 years old and start assaulting people. I had already been sexually abused. I had been trafficked. I had been abused physically and mentally and emotionally by my parents, who also had a lot of trauma and were addicted to drugs and living in poverty. And so the cycle of harm continues until we can build community and build resilience for each other. And so today, what keeps me accountable and keeps me making what I call my lifetime amends for the harm I caused is all of you. You are my people. You are my community. You are the people I never want to let down. And if we can continue to wrap around more people, I love what the Welcome Home program is doing, wrapping around people while they're currently incarcerated in the Kitsap County Jail and letting them see their worth for the first time, for many times the first time, letting them see their worth, helping them build resilience, and then bringing them home where their basic needs are cared for, so people have safety, safety in a home, safety in relationships. These are things that people like me never learned in our childhood. And so many of the people that you are, fighting for and in community with didn't have that in their homes in the beginning. And so restorative justice does not excuse behavior. It is about teaching people how to have accountability in a new way, accountability and love and change behavior, right? We absolutely want harm to stop. We want violence to end. And restorative justice holds all of these nuances together and allows us to move towards a vision of closing jails and prisons and not having a reactionary policing system into more prevention and upstream investments. And so I am absolutely grateful that you all allowed me to come and speak today and invited me, and that you all are my community and what keeps me accountable today and what keeps me fighting for the larger vision for our community. So thank you so much for having me. I'm excited about the conference.
Thank you so much. Thank you for sharing your time and wisdom with us here today. But more importantly, Representative Simmons, thank you for your excellent work that you're doing advocating for our needs within the state legislature. We really appreciate you. It's now time for us to shift gears and acknowledge others in the community who are advancing and protecting human rights within Kitsap County. These awards are named for Linda Gabriel, one of the early advocates for human rights in this area and a founder of this council, and they recognize significant contributions to human rights efforts in Kitsap County in 4 categories: youth, adult, organization, and lifetime achievement. We are so thrilled to get to honor so many within our community with Linda Gabriel Awards today. First, in the youth category, we have 5 recipients, including 2 sets of siblings. Guyland Charles. Guyland is a senior in Bremerton who has been advocating for health forums and meal distributions during COVID. He also helped with vigils, protests, Juneteenth marches, and rallies across the county in the past 1.5 years. Guyland, thank you for your contribution to human rights in Kitsap County. And if you are here, and I can't see everybody who's here, feel free to say a few words if you'd like.
First, I would like to say thank you for the great opportunity to be able to bring a defense into Kitsap County. It was hard for me at first because most of my life I was a very quiet person. But throughout my whole experience of being with Miss Karen Vargas, she's taught me to lead people and help other people in my community. And I never thought that I would be here where I am today without her.
Guyland, thank you so much for the work you're doing in the community, and you have a great mentor in Miss Vargas. Thank you so much, and we'll get your certificate out in the mail to you shortly. Sorry we can't give it to you in person, but so is Zoom. The next recipients of the Linda Gabriel Award are a set of siblings, Stonechild Chiefstick Jr. and Kane Chiefstick. These young men have been advocating for justice for their father, who was shot and killed by an officer in 2019, and for reform to the systems that so often result in such shootings. They've led peaceful protests along with their sister, mother, and other relatives. And despite hateful actions by some in the community, they have remained calm and focused on their pursuit of justice for their father, reforms to policing, and bringing awareness to the plight of Native Americans when interacting with officers. Stonechild and Kane, if you are here, we invite you to say a few words. I'm going to assume that they are among those who are without power this morning and were unable to join us. We want to thank them for their contributions to human rights in Kitsap County. Now for a second set of siblings in the youth category who are receiving the Linda Gabriel Award today, Sophia and Taisha Randall. Sophia is a junior in North Kitsap. Taisha is a senior. Both of these young women have been organizing protests, leading the charge for social and racial justice, helping with vigils, protests, Juneteenth marches, and rallies across the county in the past year and a half. And Taisha has also been organizing youth outreach efforts during COVID, and including meal distribution, and also helped with the youth conference at Marvin Williams Center. Sophia and Taisha, if you're here, we invite you to say a few words if you'd like to.
Hello. Thank you so much. It's been very lovely just to be able to, see and make change. At my school, I see a lot of change. Me and my sister, we started Equity Club in my school. So it's really nice to see that we painted a rock for Indigenous Heritage Month. We painted a rock. We also did the Pride opening. And then before we left for Columbus Day, we did Happy Indigenous Day, and our announcements said it over the announcement. So it's really nice to see change. Even though it's my last year, it's nice to see that people coming up, they'll see something different than what I saw when I first started going to NK. And I just love being able to help back and help with the community and all that.
Yeah, it's been really fun to be working with a lot of the youth and things. I mean, it's kind of weird because a while ago, I wasn't really into the protests and things like that. It was more of so just doing it to get it over with. But now it's I think that we need a change, and working with everybody to get one, it's really awesome. So thank you.
Thank you, both of you, for your contribution to human rights in Kitsap County. For us as council members, seeing so many youth taking up this work is immensely encouraging, and it's inspiring to us. And we thank all of you for not only caring about these issues already at your age, but for devoting time and energy to serving and advocating for others. So to all of our youth recipients, thank you. And now Councilmember Christina Barone will present the Linda Gabriel Award to our adult category recipient.
Good morning. I'm honored to be here today to present the 2021 Linda Gabriel Award in the adult category to Janelle Broderson. I've come to know Janelle quite well through our professional work. We're colleagues, and this has given me the opportunity to see firsthand Janelle's exemplary work, not only in Kitsap County, but on a national level. Janelle has earned a Bachelor of Arts with a major in social work from Pacific Lutheran University in Tacoma. She began her social work career in the Hilltop area of Tacoma, working with formerly incarcerated youth and victim survivors of domestic violence. In 2011, Janelle began her work at PGST, the Port Gamble Squalum Tribe, as a probation officer, and immediately went to what she knew: dismantling linear institutionalized models, starting from scratch, using trauma-informed care through a restorative human dignity approach, and working with people coming out of incarceration. As the Port Gamble Squalum Tribe's Welcome Home Program strategic planner and program manager, Janelle's innovative approach has created a nationally recognized reentry program using evidence-based practices and a people-first model. The Welcome Home program is a human dignity model that has also received the support of the Washington State Reentry Council. Janelle was instrumental in the formation of Kitsap County's Community Partnership for Transitional Solutions, a reentry task force that is one of 13 in the state of Washington. She is a member of Kitsap Strong Leadership Committee and is a St. A trauma-informed care certified trainer. She was nominated for White House Champion of Change for her work in creating restorative and innovative reentry programming. And she and the Welcome Home program team are the recipients of a Champions of Justice Award for the restorative model for those coming out of incarceration. Janelle, would you like to say a few words?
Sure. Thank you, Chris, for that beautiful introduction. I'm so truly honored to be receiving this award today. For those of you who don't know me, I have a horrible memory. So I typed something out, but I also am pretty emotional. So Nelson Mandela said, "No one truly knows a nation until one has been inside its jails and prisons." A nation should not be judged by how it treats its highest citizens, but by how it treats its lowest ones. I believe dignity is a fundamental right to all human beings, and that we must be recognized the innate worth of individuals to be treated with respect and humanity, even if they're behind bars. I'll give you one example of why I'm so passionately against, as Chris said, these linear institutionalized punishment models. One here locally in Washington State, although I could give you countless. We had an incarcerated woman here in Washington State who was serving time, and she had two severely injured ankles and used a wheelchair while she was not incarcerated. The prison did not provide her with a wheelchair or an ADA room, and she was not issued a wheelchair because it would not fit in a normal size cell. She refused to crawl on the ground to her bunk bed and was given 5 infractions and was forced to crawl in her bed and around the facilities for weeks. This is unacceptable. And this is only one story because I only have 1 more minute. We are not there. We are not even close to there across the nation with practicing of the most basic of human rights for those incarcerated. But we're getting close here in Kitsap County, and that gives me hope, and that's pretty amazing. Thanks to people who see and agencies who see and acknowledge innovative programming, that see and acknowledge the power of restorative work, and that see and acknowledge the importance of understanding people's life story that often involve trauma. This is not about me. This is about the people and agencies who have said yes to my out-of-the-box ideas when it came to creating culture shift in criminal justice system and reentry programs, like the Port Gamble-Squam Tribe and the Police Department, our Prosecuting Attorney's Office in Kitsap, our Suquamish Tribe, obviously the Kitsap County Jail, our amazing success coaches and my amazing boss, Chris Barone, Drayton Jackson, who does a lot around homelessness and poverty, Marwan Cameron, Gather Together, Grow Together, our elected officials, all of them, Tara Simmons, our Paulsville Police Department, Kitsap Strong, Dispute Resolution Center, the list goes on. So I just want to say thank you from the bottom of my heart and end with this. From the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, all human beings are born free and equal in dignity and rights. Do better, America. Follow Kitsap County and our local tribes. We will show you the way. Thank you.
I want to add that I'm also blessed to know Janelle from getting to work with her personally at the Port Gamble-Squam Tribe and serving with her on the Kitsap County Reentry Task Force. There are lots of remarkable people in the world. Some of them have incredible ability to inspire and lead others. Many of them use those gifts to amass wealth or power, but some of them dedicate their gifts in service to others. And I knew if Tara didn't get me bawling, Janelle would. Janelle is someone who is almost entirely devoted to serving the community around her. And we are lucky that she is, because she saw the need for justice reform years before others, and she led the way in our area, despite the challenges of being a trailblazer. Janelle, I have the utmost respect, love, and gratitude for you and the work that you do, the way that you do it, the attitude that you maintain each day, and the joy and inspiration that you spread just in your way of being. You're an absolutely phenomenal person, and I'm honored to know you and call you not only my remarkably accomplished colleague, but also my friend. Congratulations, and thank you for the work you do.
Thank you.
And Councilwoman Beth Barron was going to introduce the Linda Gabriel Award for the organization category, but unfortunately she is one of the many in Kitsap who is without power today and on her cell phone and doesn't have the best reception. So you're stuck with me. The Linda Gabriel Award winner for the organization category this year is the Dispute Resolution Center of Kitsap County. The DRC does so much work within Kitsap County, teaching mediation, providing mediation services, but with respect to human rights, they have been championing restorative practices and victim offender programs since the 1990s. They are currently helping with the foreclosure eviction mediation program that the state is attempting to lessen the burden of evictions that are happening as a result of the COVID crisis, providing or supporting a most essential human right to shelter, to housing. They have worked with many different offender groups, including youth within the juvenile system. They've been within the women's prison for years, I believe about a decade, providing support services there. They provide parent-children assistance programs that help mothers with addiction issues to develop parenting and relationship skills so that they can reconnect with their systems of support, whether that's family or community, and take care of their children. They are helping the tribes with the development of the reentry programs and introducing the restorative practices there. They're helping Karen Vargas now with the Village Voices campaign. They were one of the partners in the recent Port Madison dialogues, looking at the relationships between the tribe, Suquamish tribe, and the other non-tribal communities. They facilitate listening circles for so many different groups, including youth offenders, law enforcement. They have been doing restorative work within schools. And I could go on and on and on about what the DRC does because there's so much. Sue and Sophie, I believe Mary is still unable to join us this morning because of being without power. Would either of you like to say a few words?
Thank you, Dion. What I would like to do, number one, is to acknowledge that we are primarily driven by our volunteer cadre. So we have between 60 and 70 volunteers that actually do the work. And so I have to say that if it wasn't for them, we wouldn't be on the map. So I just want to acknowledge that first, and also with great gratitude for just the honor. This is such an honor, and thank you. I'll pass it over to Sophie. Faith and Vivian might want to say just a word too, but Sophie?
Gratitude for the Human Rights Council. This has been a very pleasant, lovely surprise. And I share my gratitude with Sue for our volunteers. And I also want to say, we build our whole organization on relationship, and that is that means that we do the work we do also on the strength of our partners in the community, including especially Kitsap Strong, the Port Gamble-Sklallam tribe, and all the others that we have worked alongside of and hold hands with as we try to build those tendrils of community and foster the strength of those relationships.
Well, to everyone at the DRC, thank you for the human rights work that you do within Kitsap County, and congratulations on this well-deserved award. We will now move to our recipients for the award for lifetime achievement, and we have 2 this year. And again, I'd like to ask Annie Forsman Adams to join us to present the first award.
Thank you so much. It is a true honor to be able to present this award to Suquamish Tribal Elder Barbara Lawrence. Barbara is a Suquamish storyteller, oral historian, and lifelong cultural educator on how the Suquamish people have fished, hunted, gathered, and lived in this region since time immemorial. Her leadership only elevated during the pandemic. She is has provided, or excuse me, she's presented at many different historical societies and recently participated in the Port Madison dialogues and has articles in the Kitsap Sun, Kitsap Daily News, Bainbridge Review, and many other publications. And on a personal note, I would just like to say that I have known Barbara my entire life. She is a woman who is generous with her time, with her knowledge, with her teachings. She is one of the most patient people I've ever met. And I credit her for knowing where I came from, knowing about my family, and knowing about our ancestors. And she is always willing to teach us all of the important things about living in this community. And unfortunately, she could not join us today, but we just honor her every day and especially today.
Thank you so much, Annie. And I would just want to add, for anyone who hasn't gotten to experience Barbara's work, she presented in the Port Madison Dialogues, which are on YouTube. So if you don't already know her, go find her because she's amazing. Now for our final Linda Gabriel Award for 2021. Our second recipient of the award for Lifetime Achievement is Carl Jacobson. If we could get Carl here with us. Carl was nominated twice this year for this award, something that rarely happens. He's originally from New York City and got his engineering degree from Columbia, but luckily for Kitsap, the Navy brought him to Kitsap, where he worked as a structural engineer at Sub-Base Bangor. In the 80s, he worked with the Free South America Movement and the Friends of the American National Congress. He originated the annual NAACP Mission Outreach Day events, which are commemorations of 4 significant incidents where the churches acted to protect the human rights of those under attack. And Carl, in keeping with his service mission, wants me to let everyone know that the next Mission Outreach Day is coming up on March 5th, 2022 at 2 p.m. And it will be streamed live on the Ebenezer AME Church Facebook page, and everyone is invited to join. That event is occurring near the anniversary of the Bloody Sunday March in Selma, Alabama, which was on March 7th, 1965. Carl operated an after-school study program at the church for the past 15 years until COVID disrupted that program. He's helped countless children, tutoring them in math, and the program has resumed. And he has openings for 2 to 3 in-person tutoring students at any grade level who are needing help with any math up to algebra and geometry. And he's helped so many children in this regard over the last 15 years. He currently serves as chair of the Political Action Committee of the Bremerton branch of the NAACP. He's chair of the International Relations Committee of the Alaska, Oregon, Washington Conference of the NAACP. And he is a member of the board of directors of the Filipino American Association of Kitsap County. He's devoting time to protecting voting rights and contributing to the Democracy Summit's work developing global objectives. He says he hopes his best achievements are yet to come. And Carl, we can't wait to see what you will accomplish in the years ahead. I'm so deeply honored to present you the Linda Gabriel Award for Lifetime Achievement. Thank you for your contribution to human rights in Kitsap County and the world. Carl, would you like to say a few words?
Okay, thank you. Am I, can you all hear me? Okay. Well, thank you for the introduction and thank you for the award. Slight correction on the introduction. That was the Free South Africa movement that I was a part of back in the 1980s. And also the Friends of the African National Congress. That was a part of the anti-apartheid movement as it was going on here in this country. So just want to put in a plug. Now, you already mentioned about the Mission Outreach Day event, March the 5th. And I'd like to also put in a plug for the Martin Luther King Day observance, and that's hosted by my my home church, the Ebenezer AME Church. That's going to be Monday morning, January the 17th at the President's Hall at the Kitsap County Fairgrounds, and that's always a good event. So I'd like to put in a plug for that event also, and there will be more information coming out about that event in public. And just put another word for the fact that we need during the coming year a real full court press on voting rights nationwide here in our own country. And so it's good to mobilize as much support as we can for a full court press on voting rights because there's a powerful movement going on in this country to take voting rights away from us. So we got to have a full court press on that to preserve voting rights and preserve our democratic institutions. And aside from that, I guess I've used up all the time that I ought to use up. So thank you again for considering me on the award, and I hope to have more achievements in the future. Hope to have my greatest achievements in the future, and together with others. Thank you.
That brings us to the end of this year's Linda Gabriel Awards. Please join me in a resounding round of heart emojis and Zoom applause for all of our recipients and for their contributions to our community. Now for our main event, restorative practices and circle work. Please welcome two remarkable people, Christina Barone and Carolyn Hartness, who are going to help us understand the circle process and then set us up to watch the process in action. Christina and Carolyn.
Excuse me, I'm trying to get some technical difficulties out of the way here. Let's see, I'm trying to screen share. And we're not working for some reason. Apologies. I'll just do this. Sorry, Carolyn. Okay. Can everybody see that?
We're not seeing it yet, Chris.
Okay. It's very. Carolyn, do you have any luck sliding that in? I apologize. It's not working for me.
Well, I have no technical abilities, but.
Christina, you're welcome to email something to me and I can screen share.
Okay. Well, gives everybody a few minutes for a break, right? And I tested it out last night, and of course, you know.
It's been a day of tech challenges between freeze down, power lines out.
Okay, I just emailed it to you. Thank you, Dion.
Christina, you might want to move your camera back. There we go. We were looking at
Sorry, I have
support.
second screen and I was trying to kind of sort out and it's just not working for whatever reason. So.
I remember getting to my very first presentation 30 years ago, and they had rented a slide projector and it didn't have a lens. Oh. And I had 2 hours to speak without my slides. We can do it.
Thanks so much for my technical abilities. You have it, Dion?
Yes, I have it downloaded and open.
And we're just going to say slide, if you would then forward the slide. Unless you can give control to Chris.
I'll just let Dion, if that's okay. I'm nervous now about my skills.
So I'm going to send it to Elizabeth because it's not letting me share it either.
Oh my gosh.
It should let you. You should have permission to do so. Let's see. But feel free to send it to me and I can share it.
It's in the Zoom settings on my side, apparently.
Okay, everybody stretch.
Lead us, Miss Carolyn. You got a lot of wisdom in there. I know this PowerPoint ain't gonna capture all that wisdom in there.
My neck doesn't feel too wise. I have a Zoom neck.
If I can lead us, just while we're getting this figured out, I'd just like for everyone, let's close our eyes and do some deep breaths. I just think we just need to really be present in this moment for the information that we're about to receive and the process that we're about to see. A lot of times technical difficulties and trying to present the best and all that stuff can really just distract us from what's most important in what we're learning today. And so I'm just going to lead us through to do 6 deep breaths with our eyes closed, just to kind of just reflect and be present in the moment, and to just, all the things that we come with today that is on our minds, that is on our hearts, to be able to just be fully present in this moment as we begin to engage with these sacred practices that have been very beneficial to our society today and for thousands of years. And so I just want to lead us in that. I know that's off script, but hey, it is what it is. Let's do it.
I think I'm inhibited a little bit because of the security that we've set some new security parameters up at the tribe. And it all goes through an administrative process. And I think, and with a new computer, so I really apologize. It's the first time this has happened, and it's a little concerning.
Chris and Carolyn,
Yes.
maybe for the sake of time, do you feel comfortable just kind of freestyling for a bit?
Sure, I have some notes. I mean, that I made just in terms of, and I can, you certainly don't need any graphics of mine. I know that Carolyn has some stuff. I just, thank you. My apologies again for any technical issues that we have. I am here today with Carolyn to discuss and share some information with you on circle work in the context of restorative practices. Since time immemorial, restorative justice has been a way of life for Indigenous peoples globally. In Western culture, we're trained to focus on communication through words. We study the nuances of language and analyze other people's communication, from emails to major speeches. Our everyday experiences remind us how much is being communicated beyond words. We sense each other's moods. We feel welcomed or not walking into a room. We know when to leave a threatening situation. I've connected with Indigenous communities across the United States. What I've learned through my relationship with these communities is that at the core of their restorative justice practices and philosophy are values such as honesty, integrity, being in community, having a relationship with all beings. Indigenous communities think not only of their children's welfare or even their children's children, but the welfare of the next 7 generations to come. This cultural timeframe is an essential part of the healing process. For justice to be, there must be healing, and we know that healing happens in connection with others. Being restorative means being community-minded and community-committed. The trick to realizing this, that it calls us to think and act differently from Western ways. Circle Works draws on the age-old Native American tradition of bringing people together to understand one another, to strengthen bonds, and to solve community problems. Conversely, being in community, which restorative practices create space for, nurtures relationships and deepens them. So I had a slide that said, why do we circle? We know that circles contain a nuanced, complex complexity that deserves our full attention. They provide a path of authentic, meaningful conversations in restorative work. It's a way for us to get to know each other, build community, and model relationship values we wish to see in the world. The power of restorative practices hinges on relationships, and relationships shape community. Circles are spaces created from people's willingness to be vulnerable, to acknowledge triggers, and to build limitations, and to know our own limitations. These hallmarks of self-reflection and humility allow us to build trust and to cultivate genuine connection. And there were some slides. I'm just not going to worry about that, but I'm going to pass on to Carolyn, who will take us into the subtleties of circle work.
Thank you, Chris. And I'm going to try screen share. See what happens. Okay. Oh, what's happening? Can you see anything?
Yes.
Yes, we can.
You see the slides?
Yep.
Yes.
Really? Oh, Chris, I'm sorry. I should have done this.
No, I'm glad that you were able to. Yeah, I've got some. There we go.
Oh my gosh. Wow. I mean, I deserve applause because I am not techie. So, well, welcome everybody. Thank you so much for being here. And I have created a little, and I don't know if you can see this, but I created a little altar here on my desk. And because, you know, this is what we're talking about is the sacred hoop. Sorry. And so anytime I have conversation or activity around something sacred, I like to create an altar, or at least a vibration that tells us that this is a special conversation. So just thinking about, you know, the circle, the hoop, and you know, there are so many things in the world that are circular, and including me getting more so during COVID. You know, the earth turns, the sun and everything is moving around in the sky. Many of our circles, our ceremonies include circle dancing and circle talking circles. You know, our drums, many of our drums are around. So in the indigenous world, and that includes beyond just Native Americans, circles are really important. So again, universal talks about wholeness, perfection, the self, the infinite, timelessness, the cyclical movement of everything. And you know what we're doing today with this is we are creating energy, and I want you all to think about it as we talk today as that ripple effect. It's moving out into the world beyond the circle that we're in right now, but we're sending this healing energy out and restorative energy into the community that we live in, as well as the world around us. So these are rooted in ancient teachings. This was the way that people and solve problems and so forth. And I know I had an incredible teacher from the Congo, Bunseki Fukiao, and he said in his village, whenever there was an issue, they would build a fire and light stones, and then they had an open hut, not like a sweat lodge, but an open hut with a fire pit in the middle, and they would bring the stones in and put them in the fire pit, and then the village would sit around. Say a couple was having trouble with their marriage or relationship, and they would sit there, he said, sometimes for days until it was all worked out. The village would interact and maybe offer to take care of the kids while the couple goes to a retreat place or something like that. So these ways are not, again, like I said, just part of our Native American culture. So really, you know, there's so much healing in group work. I know that I've worked with individuals, but people who are opposed to sharing, opposed to expressing their situation, essentially asking for help, don't benefit as much as people in a circle. And I kind of laughed when I was reading the elders' words about the circle, and someone said perhaps this was the beginning of group therapy. So again, if you've all sat in circles, which I know you have, you know the amount of healing that can happen. I used to work for United Indians of All Tribes Foundation with their street youth program, and I would go up to Echo Glen and do circle work with the incarcerated Native kids up there. And I was going into 3rd and 4th grade classrooms doing circles. And what I realized is that for most of those kids, it was the first time anybody truly just listened to them without comment, without advice, without chastising. And so there's a great deal of empowerment that happens when someone can use their voice and be heard and feel supported. And of course, our circles should encourage confidentiality. Oh, and another thing too that I talk about in my circles is that, you know, we are forming a family here, and this particular configuration of family might not happen again, but we have done something that's now a being essentially. So we will always have this in our minds and our heart, this group of people today. So protocols, sometimes it might start with a blessing, it might, you know, just be the person saying a prayer, singing a song. The facilitator may actually talk about what the intention of the circle is, because you can have many different kinds of circles. And then just getting everybody's mind together. Again, you can use a lot of different things. You know, I've got sweetgrass here, I've got some sage, I've got my eagle fan. There's talking sticks. You can even use a drumstick. One of my favorite stories is when I was doing that work with 3rd and 4th graders, I had a bunch of kids, 4th graders at an elementary school out in a portable. And these were all kids whose parents were using drugs and alcohol. So I think many of them had fetal alcohol. And they were like spiders on the wall. So we got them in a circle. They got their little mats, got in a circle. And then after we tried that and it seemed to work really well, we told them that we had to get a sacred stone. And so we went outside and they all scattered to the directions. And I thought, oh, this is not a good idea. But then finally, and they had asked me, how will we know a sacred stone? And I said, you'll know. And pretty soon one little girl came running up, here, I found the sacred stone, and we used that. And then one of the girls went on a weekend with her family to the ocean. That was really positive. It was a very positive experience. And she came back with a driftwood stick. And so we used that, and then all the kids wrote their name on the stick, and we covered it with beads and feathers and so forth. And every time I went there, all I had to do was lift the stick in the air, and the kids would run and jump into that circle because they were so excited, again, to just be heard. We might use sage or, you know, some sort of herb to smudge, to clean ourselves and also the circle itself. Let's see. And, you know, it's interesting because a lot of times people tell me that they think that they're going to say a certain thing, but by the time the talking stick or whatever gets to them, they say something totally different because you get triggered by what other people say. There's also the situations where people get the talking stick or the feather and they can't speak. They've become too emotional. So sometimes we might send it around again. So protocols, we speak honestly, we speak from our heart. You know, I've been in a circle where fortunately the elder that was leading it told us we could not talk about every ant and insect and twig and tree and bush on the planet. So there's sort of, you know, this idea of not being brief to cut your story really short, but to recognize that we're all there together and we all need time to be heard. And again, also just recognizing that it's out of respect that we're listening. And it is difficult sometimes in these circles to listen because you do, as I say, get triggered and things come up and you start having thoughts and ideas, and it's easy to tune out and tune into what you're going to say. My best advice, even though we don't give advice in the circle, is to listen intently to everybody. And when you go to speak, it will come from the heart and you will say what you need to say. So again, you know, maybe the feather's going to go around more than one time. And at the end of the circle, many times there's some sort of either smudging or a song is sung or something, or just a prayer is made. There's some direction that's saying that the circle is closed. So these circles, you know, they're all about connectedness and being part of the web of life. And we think of that web, like I said, as being sacred. That is a sacred circle and a sacred connection we're in with each other. So that sacredness, that connectedness is what it's all about in our teachings, and that you are connected to each other, and whatever for you is a bigger energy that guides your life. And recognizing that we're all relatives. And it isn't just being a relative, because it's easy to say, oh yeah, she's like my sister or my grandmother or something, but it's the focus on relationship, not just relatives, because relationship requires some interaction. It requires being connected and that give and take, reciprocity. So if we respect each other and we recognize that we're all in this together, I think it will come back tenfold. You know, I had one of my teachers and coworkers when I was at United Indians, Greg Red Fox. He was our spiritual leader at the youth program. And he would give all of his sacreds away at the end of every year. And I would say, Greg, what are you going to do? You're going to have an eagle feather. And by the end of the next year, he had twice as much stuff. So, you know, just this letting go and giving yourself to the hoop and giving yourself to those relationships and that connectedness, I think, is the best healing there is. And this idea that the hurt of one is the hurt of all and the joy of one is the joy of all. I really like that teaching. So Black Elk said, in the old days, all our power came to us from the sacred hoop of the nation. And so long as the hoop was unbroken, the people flourished. Luther's standing bearer, Oglala Sioux, said, love settles within the circle, embracing it, and thereby lasting forever, turning within itself. Excuse me. So the circle itself, again, like I said, is considered sacred. And there's just a lot of wisdom when you come into a group of people. You know, we think we know a lot until we really start listening to what others say. You never know who is going to be your teacher. A friend told me that her friend was working in a big building down in Seattle, and on her break went to Pioneer Square back when it was all, you know, restaurants and crowded streets in the summertime, and a street person who was staggering towards her and bumped into her. And he said to her, hey, get out of your rut. And she looked at him and continued to walk, and then she turned around and she couldn't see him again, and she went home and she just kept thinking about that, get out of my rut. And the next day she came back to work and quit and moved to California. So you never know who your teachers are going to be. It's a really good idea to just listen to what people say. As it says here, it can alter your consciousness and again be very magical and uplifting. So empathy and, you know, is a really good thing to have in a circle, to really, like I say, be there with that person, with their feelings, and really moving away from criticism and advice into compassion and empathy. So, you know, programs like the Welcome Home program are different from that, you know, traditional Western model. And again, we really look towards the restorative justice circles as being a very important part of our program. Excuse me. So again, opportunity to, and we'll talk about this more later, I think in the other circle, but, you know, it's just an opportunity for everybody to say what's in their heart and on their minds. And sometimes what's in their heart and on their minds is hard to hear, you know, but this is a safe place to be. And this is, again, a place hopefully of forgiveness and at least listening. Sorry, my mouse keeps jumping away from the arrow. So again, we, in our Welcome Home program, we use a lot of circles. Again, thinking about these as a way to really heal relationships, work through problems, and just connect, just to focus on, you know, processes that we're going through. And like Chris had said, you know, there's a lot of conversation in the work that we do. And I think that this is the thing that I really witness the most is looking at how people respond to the ability to just tell their story and to be heard and to be supported in that story. And again, as Janelle has said, you know, that we are moving away from that dehumanizing model that is in our correction system in so many places. And again, she says, we want to understand that person and who they are, their story and their family, treating them as human beings and filling them with hope. So again, in these circles, everything is about relationship, and we are bound to each other through need and responsibility to support each other in order to maintain balance and to survive in a healthy environment, including mentally, physically, spiritually, and emotionally. And I think it's really important to include all of those aspects of who we are when we're talking about healing and when we approach these circles. So again, challenging conversations. I was quoting here from Michael E. Bird, and I really like his work. And he talks about let's get uncomfortable, and talking about how it is sometimes difficult to sit in these circles when you're trying to resolve problems, and there are different perspectives. But again, as he says, I think it's time to get uncomfortable. So circles diminish a lot of the discomfort that can arise. And again, many different kinds of circles, intimate circles with just a few people. You can have big community circles, there's celebratory circles, many, many different kinds. So, the use of the circle to help individuals in need has grown in recent years, and that is so true. I'm finding that everywhere, and I'm working not just in the United States, but also in other countries. And the talking circle has become universal again. People are using this as a way to run their programs, actually. So healing circles in particular provide a safe space in which people who have suffered similar trauma can come together and speak openly about that and leave feeling healed, or at least on the road to recovery. So that's the end of mine. And I don't know what time it is, but if anybody has questions, I think you all, nothing I said is probably very new to you, especially if you've been involved with dispute resolution and other services in Kitsap County who use talking circles. And I am just so proud to be a community member in Kitsap County because of all the work that all of you do and what you all contribute to the healing of our people. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Carolyn. We're going to transition now to our circle demonstration to give you a glimpse of how these restorative practices work in different professions.
Thanks, Chris. Appreciate that, and appreciate you, Miss Carolyn, as well. We're overdue for one of those long conversations on the phone too. You got a lot of wisdom there. Y'all better take her email down or something. I just want to address so I'm not going to rush this process. I know we're a little bit behind on time, but the whole concept of time comes from Western colonization. And when we're in these spaces, we have to really make room for being able to hear one another and being able to understand and listen to one another so that everyone feels heard. And so I just wanted to mention that because a lot of times, even myself, I'm thinking about time, but really it's meant to be about relationship and being interconnected and making sure that everyone is heard. And so I'm going to go ahead and pass it to Sue. So normally when we do our circles, we do a land acknowledgement. We did one earlier, and so we're going to demonstrate just one that we use from the DRC when we do our circles as well. So.
Hey, thanks, Daryl. I'm so excited. All righty. We would like to acknowledge that most of us today are gathering on the ancestral homelands of the Coast Salish peoples who have lived in the Salish Sea Basin from time immemorial. We express our deepest respect and gratitude specifically to the Suquamish and the Port Gamble S'Klallam tribes for their enduring care and protection of our shared lands and waterways.
Thank you, Sue. Elizabeth, if we can go back to the previous slide with the, we have quite a few people here. We have 12 participants that are going to participate in this. We have Sue Maglino, myself, as well as Eva, and we're going to do some more introductions. And I just want to appreciate everyone that's going to be participating in this. And I just wanted to say that. So if we can go to the gathering slide. So the goal of the circle is to build connection and be able to support trust among each other. And we use a talking stick in circles, or a talking piece. I haven't gotten a talking stick, hopefully one day. But this is going to be the talking piece. So it's just going to be virtual. This is what we're going to pass along. This is a art piece, a resemblance of an eagle feather, which has a lot of significance in Native culture. So this is going to be the talking piece that I will pass it around. Circles, we don't interrupt over one another. The only person talking is the person that's next in rotation with the talking piece. And there's times where people may not feel moved to speak, and they may be able to pass and come back to them at some point. And this just offers an opportunity for deep listening. And the goal is to listen and to actually and not judge what you're hearing. In a lot of our communication, we tend to listen to respond and not actually listen to hear someone's heart and what they're actually saying or feeling. And as Ms. Carolyn mentioned, the empathy piece, it's hard to have empathy when you're judging what someone's saying. And so we ask that in the circle that we speak from our own experience, our own lived experience. And a circle is never a time for defending or blaming other people. It's about hearing and being able to express that empathy as well. And so there's wisdom in everyone. That's one of our core beliefs. And so I'm just gonna go ahead and go with our guidelines, which is, what we say in circle stays in circle. This is obviously this is being recorded so that people can be able to come back and reference and learn from what a circle looks like. But confidentiality is very important. And then we respect the talking piece while we're in circle. We listen respectfully and we speak respectfully. So I'm going to go ahead and pass it to Sue for our 5 core values.
Thanks, Daryl. I wanted to say just briefly, a big thank you to Chris and Carolyn, who did a beautiful job in talking about what restorative practices and justice are and where it originated. In the early 70s, there was a group of Indigenous people that passed on the tradition to, in general, to a mixed group of folks that they trained. And over time, there's a couple of women, Kay Pranis and Carolyn Boyce Watson, were 2 women who've been working since that time in the world of restorative justice and restorative circles. They came up with 7 powerful core beliefs. I wrote down the top 5, and they're much longer than this. They're much more beautiful and eloquent, but this is the core of what we as circle keepers believe to be true and why we do this work. The true self in every single one of us is good, wise, and powerful. Our world and all of us in it are profoundly interconnected. All human beings have a deep desire to be in good relationship with one another. All of us have gifts, and everyone is needed for what they bring. And everything we need to make positive change is already here.
Thanks, Sue. And for our opening of the circle, we're going to, we usually open with a reading or a song. And today we're going to have Ms. Carolyn do a song for us. We discussed that, right?
There, I just had to unmute. Thank you again. This is reported by Cherokee people to be a song that they heard their grandmothers and mothers sing. They would get up in the morning and sing this to the sun, and it essentially just says, "In our hearts and our spirits, we are strong." And you may know this song. Robbie Robertson recorded this, and if you do know it, sing along, because we feel that our songs are like prayers, and the more energy there is, the stronger the prayer, and it's the stronger the message. When they are whole, when they are whole, Wendy, Wendy, ho, 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 hey, ho, yeah, yeah, yeah. Wendy, ho, Wendy, ho, Wendy, Wendy, ho, 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 hey, yeah, yeah, yeah. Wendy, 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 ho, 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 hey, yeah, yeah, yeah. Wendy, 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 ho, 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 hey, yeah, yeah, yeah.
Thank you, Miss Carolyn. So just to start off our circle, I know that we had some technical difficulties earlier, and Miss Chris and Carolyn, they were having to speed through, what the important topics that we needed to address today. And so Sue and I, we're just gonna preface the circle with just a crosstalk, just defining what restorative is, and that repetition that's needed for us to really grasp the concept of what is restorative, what is restoring someone. And so Sue, what's your take on what is being restorative?
Thanks, Daryl. I have a couple ideas I just wanted to reiterate. One, in the International Institute of Restorative Practices, their terminology is this: restorative practices are a social science that studies how to build social capital and achieve social discipline through participatory learning and decision-making, which to me is a lot of big words, which says, in short, if we're in good relationship, that we have a tendency to be more caring of one another. If we're in good relationship, we have a greater chance of healing or working through conflict. So a lot of what restorative practices do is engage us in relationship. And if we can do that, we tend to not otherize people. We tend to start caring, building trust, all of those things. So I think a lot of what restorative practices is preemptive work. We work to prevent the harm. And then once there is harm, we have a way to go back and not just exclude or punish, but incorporate that person or people back into the fold. We take them in. So a loving response, compassionate response, to reintegrate them into the community if they have done harm to someone. So that it kind of is, in a nutshell, Daryl, is my feeling. I'm happy to hear if you have your thoughts.
Yeah, so I think, the definition of restore is to reinstate or to restore someone to something. And I believe that something is, it goes back to our 5 core values, in which are based around human dignity. And that's the true self in every one of us is good, wise, and powerful. Our world is profoundly interconnected. All human beings have a deep desire to be in good relationship with one another. All of us have gifts and everyone is needed for what they bring. And everything we need to make a positive change is already here. And so I'm just really like, the way I view it is that we're restoring people back to their human dignity, which a lot of our institutions and systems have taken away from people and have not honored. And so that's my take on it as well as some things you said. Ms. Carolyn, you got anything to add to that?
Yeah, when I talk about circles, I think about community, that we're all in a circle, that we're all in the earth circle, we're in our country circle, we're in our state circle, we're in our neighborhood or county, family, all of that. And so when someone is pulled out of the circle, And drugs and alcohol and poverty and violence and neglect, all those things can do that, can pull someone out of the circle. Their space does not close up. Their space remains there. And the good thing about that is, of course, we can try to bring them back, but the negative part of it is it drains. It drains the entire circle when we lose people. So it's in all of our best interest to draw people back into the circle and restore them to that wholeness and that wellness. And I talk a lot too about the fact that your spirit is never damaged. People talk about soul wound and spirit wound, and I appreciate that type of thinking because it makes us think about what state are our souls in and our spirits because of life. But I don't feel they ever get damaged. I feel they get covered with all the things I said, neglect and abuse and drugs, alcohol, all these things. And so, becoming a recovered person who's restored to the circle, who's going to be of benefit to the community, is just a process of removing all those veils that have covered the spirit up. And again, I'm grateful and hands up to all of you that help do that in this community. Thank you.
Thanks, Ms. Carolyn. So as we get started, I'm going to start with our first question. Please share your name, your title, what you do, and what the philosophy or belief of restorative work means to you. So my name is Daryl Thomas. I'm one of the council members here. I also work for the Suquamish tribe, and I have many other hats. But the belief of restorative work for me personally is it kind of resorts back to my faith in Christ, where he acknowledged the widows and said, "You visited me in prison, you give your shirt off your back," all those different things, and it just shows that human dignity that many people didn't honor. I mean, many people casted out the people that were incarcerated, the widows, the orphans, the homeless, and that belief just really just is interconnected with the circle, with the restorative belief. And so that's kind of what that means to me and how I am able to personally engage in this work, and then also use it in my professional life as well. So I'm going to go ahead and pass it to Eva.
Hello, everybody. My name is Eva Scott, and I am the Assistant Superintendent for Teaching and Learning in Bremerton School District. We have really leaned into implementing restorative approaches to our system with adults and students alike over the last few years, and the pandemic has really kind of thrown a bit of a wrench and an opportunity into the work. And I think to kind of summarize what it means to me. I wasn't born in this country. I grew up in a different community. I worked and lived on several continents, including Southeast Asia, in Thailand, where a sense of community is so deep and circles are part of the culture and the school setting. And so coming back to the States, it became clear how our approach to students who have behaviors out of what is expected is tremendously damaging, at times shaming and exclusionary, and that's a systemic issue. So to me, it means shifting our system, and I'm speaking from my role outside of what I personally believe, but as a assistant superintendent, shifting our system to move away from managing student behavior and developing and building relational capacity and a sense of community for all, and that means for students and adults alike, because if the adults are not feeling like they're part of the system, our students are not going to feel either. And really leaning into the vision of every one of us feeling that sense of safety, significance, and belonging wherever we show up. So I will pass it on to Karen.
Good morning, family. How's everybody doing this morning? So the question is, what this work means to me, and how we engage in this work. I guess I would start with this work is around healing, as well as reconciliation. When you talk about the ministry of reconciliation and what that entails restoring, working with our community in a restorative way, being able to address some of the challenges and difficult things. When there's been a breach or a breakdown, how do we begin to heal, or how do we begin to at least start the process of reconciling some of those differences? So when I think about stepping into the work of reconciliation, it's heart work. You have to deal with hearts and minds, and you've got to deal with challenging and difficult issues, whether it be violence, domestic, violence, or whether it be issues with health. How do you restore individuals in a way that will bring healing? Sometimes that means that we've got to begin to make the connection. And one of the things we know, when relationships and trust has been broken, we have to go back to some foundational principles of restoration. And what does that look like? Sometimes that means something different to you than it means to me, but it begins with how we listen to one another. Are we willing to come to the table to listen? Are we willing to lay down our anger? Are we willing to forgive? When we talk about the restorative practices, we have to bring all of these conversations, all these things to the circle, or all of these things to the table, so that we can begin to grow. And I say grow forward and move out of that breach and out of that disruption, out of that breakdown. And so when I think of this work, it starts with that practice, that foundational practice, that I see you, you see me. We have to learn how to Ubuntu, which means we have to learn how to have everyone come in the village, even though there might have been some disruption, but be able to move our communities forward in a healthy way. So with that, I will pass it on to Ms. Carolyn.
Thank you. Wow, what can I say after that? Actually, I think you've heard me say pretty much everything I want to say at this moment. I do work with the Welcome Home project, and what I love is how we get to start before COVID. It was a lot easier in the jail and actually meeting with each individual person that is entering the program and just shepherding them, Janelle always says, we're walking alongside folks and just helping them along that restorative path, and then watching them complete to graduation is just so fulfilling. And if you have 10 and only one succeeds, that's okay, because you've made a difference in those other 9 lives at all. And they'll be coming back to the circle at some point. And I will pass to Larry.
Hi. Thanks for having me here today. My name is Larry Jefferson. In my day job, I'm currently the Director of Public Defense for the state of Washington. In my other job, 24/7, I'm a father, and I'm a husband, and I'm a son, and I'm a grandson. And so when they say that you don't know what you're going to say when it comes to the circle, they're right, that you don't know what you're going to say. But what I am bringing with me is my ancestors. When I hear restorative justice, I hear their cries, their pain, but I also see their joy. I've seen their joy when I've walked into a courtroom and had other African-American women just be so happy that I was there. And as they listened to my client's story, they gave me a chance to say what needed to be said. When I think about restorative, I think about generational trauma. I think about 1619 and all of the things that go with that, that go with slavery, and that this country had a great war in order to end that abominable practice where people were traded as pigs, chickens, and dogs, just with the same regard. And that there was a period after that war, a period of about 12 years that lasted between 1865 and 1877, where people joined together. I think there was something called the Purple Party, which had poor whites and blacks joining together and making legislative changes that were amazing. But in 1877, the federal government retreated, and the troops that were in the North left. 1877 is the year that my grandmother was born, Carrie Crawford Smith. In some way, somehow, in that time when lynchings and the Ku Klux Klan was formed, somehow she made her way to college, Fisk University, and she graduated in 1897. So at the age of 20, she graduated during that time. What does that mean? That during that harmful time, what I believe is that there was community. And there was a community of people that came together and said, we want to make sure that this wonderful woman gets this education that's so dearly needed. And during that time, the black codes were established, Jim Crow was established, yet she still flourished. She became a teacher, and she owned a black employment agency from 1919 to 1953 when she passed away. I'll have you know that that was in Evanston, and Evanston is the first city in America that has passed reparations in some way, shape, or form in order to heal from that. The law at this point in time is still going through a chance for restoration that we must heal from. For slavery has turned into mass incarceration, and what mass incarceration does is reduces people's connection to community. So what I'm about is about restoring people's connection to community, and that's why I'm here today. Thanks. And I'm going to pass it on to Ron Harding.
I don't think Ron is here. He may be one of the ones without power up in North Kitsap. So let's pass to Sue, unless Daryl has a different design. Okay.
You're on mute, Sue.
Yeah, thanks, Daryl. I didn't want to be, I was going to be yelling amen, but that's why I muted myself. I think what I want to say is that Sue Maglino, I work with the Dispute Resolution Center. I'm a circle practitioner, and I believe in what I've read over and over again in my attempts to be trauma informed and to pass on that message is that all healing happens in relationship, and circles are just a unique, beautiful way to enter and maintain relationship. And so that's why it has become just a major focus of my life. And my newest thing is I found out that if you listen to people long enough and tell yourself not to be judging, I erased my whiteboard. I have a big whiteboard that's my brain that's constantly thinking of a million things that some matter, some don't. And I erase that whiteboard the whole time I'm listening to somebody else, because what I think doesn't matter in that moment. It becomes a meditation. So there you go. You have the synopsis of where I'm at right in this moment about restorative practices. And I will pass to my good friend, Janelle.
Thank you, Sue. My name is Janelle Broderson. I think I already did an introduction, but I am the project manager and strategic planner for the Welcome Home program. When I think about restorative justice, I think about listening. And I mean, truly listening. I think that art of listening is lost art, but I think it comes back in these circles. And to really actually see each other. And when you really see each other, and when you really connect at this kind of authentic and genuine way, relationships change, they shift. And so maybe you come into this circle with some unsettled rage, and you have this sacred space where everyone's heard. It can move from this unsettled rage to a place of hope and peace. And I think it's so important that we have these restorative practices, not just in the systems that the criminal justice system, but across the board, whether that's in the court system, education, et cetera, because this is when we see real change, is when we start to see each other. And with that, I'll pass it to who I haven't seen for a while, the lovely Shoshana Bays.
I don't see her in the meeting either. So I am going to pass it to Anna.
Hi, my name is Anna Ariza. I'm a deputy prosecutor with Kitsap County. Right now I'm assigned to the special assault unit in the felony division. And I've been coming to the community circle for, gosh, like over a year now. It feels like less and more because of where we're at right now. But so what the meaning of restorative work to me personally has come to be is sort of a framework to put together a lot of philosophies and practices that I've seen from around the world, and just that have just and ideas that all sort of floated in my head, and this practice really pulls that together for me, and provides a framework for understanding why things are the way they are. I think the biggest thing that I find important about restorative work is the getting to the why of whatever issue is being worked on. I think a lot of times we try to cover those things up, and I really appreciate what Carolyn said about, things sort of piling on top of the spirit or covering up the spirit. We just try to cover over things or put things out of sight to solve problems, and it really doesn't. So I think getting at the why and building relationships so that we can trust each other's conversation is really the most important thing to me about this practice. And I will pass to Chris.
Thank you, Anna. My name is Christina Barone. I'm Director of Court Services for the Port Gamble-Sklallam Tribe and a Human Rights Council member. I think restorative justice work, it continues to gain popularity and momentum in the United States and beyond, really. It's often described as an alternative approach, when in reality, it's just a way of being, and it's a way that communities once operated. So I truly believe that restorative work is a way to develop community, to manage conflict and tensions by repairing harm and building relationships, whether it's in the context of criminal justice, social justice, oppression, education. I think it can be the shift that we need to evoke change, to build consensus, equity, and inclusion. And I'll pass to Chief Almiral.
Hello, everyone. I'm Domingo Almiral. I'm the Chief of Police for the Port Gamble-Sklallam Tribe. Restorative justice, I think it's more just restorative work for all around in the way of giving us an alternative to fixing a system that might be broken. And, that there's always a different way to skin this cat. And I think with this restorative system, we can go ahead and move forward with that.
All right, thanks, Domingo. You got cut out towards the end of that. I'm gonna go ahead and pass it to Sue for our next question. And then Domingo, if you could check your audio, see if it's going good or your connection, because I had trouble hearing you on the last couple sentences. So Sue, and you're on mute.
Yes. I get kind of excited, so I mute myself because I'm afraid I'm going to yell out things that I shouldn't be yelling out, or maybe I should be. What the heck? So the next question is going to be, how do you employ restorative practices in your work? And what are the benefits of doing that? And if you happen to do something where you're not employing those, what do you dream about if you did? So if you do employ restorative practices, how do you do that? And what are the benefits that you see? And yes, I employ restorative work in my day-to-day work. And I guess if I were to pick out one thing, at this point in my life, as I'm getting just a little older, I'm really employing restorative practices. I try in everything I do. So everything from where I work, which I think our staff has, we have an amazing place to work, and we have a staff that is so open to circling up. It's changed our way of being. So that's a tiny portion. I won't go too much into that, but that's a tiny thing. I also, once understanding and recognizing what happened in, so my very first ever experience with restorative practices was learning 15 years ago. I took a training with a wonderful gentleman named Eric Gilman, who is a facilitated dialogue practitioner. And I learned how to do what we used to call victim offender mediation, which is the most restorative practice I've ever had the opportunity to be a part of. And so harm circles are an extension of a victim offender mediation by incorporating larger groups. So the healing actually is bigger. And so that's where I see the biggest healing. And once understanding that, you can take those concepts into any mediation and understand that in general, healing is something that can be accomplished by working restoratively between parties that are in conflict. And I will go ahead and pass on to you, Janelle.
Thank you, Sue. I feel like everyone on this call could answer this with me collectively because everyone, I think, on this call has been on one of our restorative circle or our community listening circles with us. So we definitely employ this within our Welcome Home program. And so we have two circles. We have a restorative circle, and let me mention that we contracted with Dispute Resolution of Kitsap County, and Sue, Vivian, China, Sophie, I'm sure I'm missing someone else, have done an amazing job in training us. And so basically what happens in these restorative circles is we have someone coming out of incarceration, the victim of the crime, potentially family, community, law enforcement, elected officials, our tribal members, the BIPOC community, and whoever wants to join this circle. So for the person who's leaving incarceration, we really wanted to flip the script. And instead of just, kicking them out on the street with a bus pass, we actually wanted to make this more of a celebration, a place to restore relations. And that's why we actually titled it the Welcome Home Program because we wanted them to feel welcome back to their community and supported through Circle and supported with those individuals in the Circle. So this was birthed out of the grant that we received about 3 years ago. And we started having conversations on what this would look like when we start to strategic plan. Excuse me. And so those have been really amazing circles where you really see things, you really see transformation, beautiful transformation happen, whether that's a connection with an officer who arrested the individual, or whether that's a family member that is crying for the first time and able to really see and hear the person that has caused the harm. And so these are definitely something that we can continue to do. I want to put it out there to everyone that we will continue to do those once a month, and we love community involvement. After a few things and a lot of unrest in the community and in the nation, we decided to go a step further and had conversations with dispute resolution about opening up community listening circles. Community listening circles are a little bit different. It's still the same, justice involved, law enforcement, community, our success coaches, our tribal members. And what that is about is it's about developing relationships so we get to know each other. So then we can start asking the tougher questions about what can we change in the justice system? What does systemic racism look like in the justice system, right? And so we can have these conversations in a very respectful and sacred manner. It is not a town hall style meeting where people are yelling at each other and they just can't get anything across. And so these are two beautiful practices that we do. And we would love to have more community involved in those as we move forward. So yeah, we definitely use that. And I won't pass it to Shoshana, but I just wanted to mention that both Ron and Shoshana said that their power is out. So I'll pass it to Anna.
So it's funny, the relationships that I mostly do the community circle, although I've been involved a little bit in the restorative circles as well. But you build a lot of relationships, like Janelle said, with people that you didn't necessarily expect to have relationships with. And I think that that's so important, because the bottom line is that everyone is there doing that work because they care and they want to see things change. And I always laugh because I, at a certain point, had this conversation with one of our jail sergeants who's been a longtime coworker, and we were laughing about how we never thought that we'd be spending so much time as a prosecutor and a jail sergeant trying to get people out of jail. But like that is really how it has completely affected my goals and what I do at work. There are people, for some reasons, that are hard to put back into the community, and we fight hard to protect our community from people who are harmful to our community. But a lot of the time when you ask why somebody is harmful, doing something like restorative work, you can change that person's relationship with the community, or at least assist them, because they're really their own agent of change. But sometimes people don't have those skills. So it's allowed me to be a lot more creative in how I resolve cases. It's just given me a much greater knowledge of what's out there in our community, what's out there in the world that can assist people who are suffering, who do have challenges and deficits from trauma and addiction, people who really frustrate the criminal justice system by coming back over and over again. I see it as a way for those people to reintegrate into the community, and for us to, as also being criminal justice participants in a different way, to understand more holistically what's going on, and to actually achieve our goals of not having these impacts in our community, not having these crimes in the future. So that's been how I've used this practice. And I just feel really blessed to be kind of taking in all of this knowledge and being able to share it even among people who don't participate, just spreading the word that this is possible. And I will pass to Chris.
Thank you, Anna. So I predominantly work on Indigenous justice issues within a tribal setting, primarily with structure and systems. And as a Native American community, I think we are acutely aware of how we have to focus on healing the whole person, which is then the catalyst to the community making change. We use this holistic approach in our court system, through our reentry work, through our probation department, through our healing to wellness court, crime victim services, et cetera, et cetera. And, it's an approach that hopefully can level the playing field so that restorative practices can create an experience for anybody who participates, that they feel validated, and that they leave feeling, with their humanity intact. I just was listening to what Janelle and Anna were saying about the circles and how it's been amazing to watch them kind of evolve through community, and how many different community organizations and individuals that are involved in that, and how by doing that circle work in the restorative and the listening circles, that we've been able to create a culture, a collective within Kitsap County, where we align more. I think we understand one another better in terms of how we can move into a more restorative way with one another, and particularly to those populations that we serve. I'll pass to Chief Amaral.
Well, I think I've been doing this a little over a year with the circle, and I have learned many things from the people that have been in the circle. But what I've learned the most is that we need to figure out, again, like it's been said throughout the circle, that we need to figure out the why. Why are they here, and how can we fix that? That's key to everything. What the trigger is, and then trying to give them some assistance so that they don't have to come. I don't have to go and see them, and then they think of me as just putting a better person and an asset to our society, instead of somebody that's just sitting in jail doing their time. And with that, I pass to Daryl.
Thanks, Chief Amaral. So Chief Harden just joined us, and I just wanted to give you the question before we get to you. The question that we're on is, well, introduce yourself, your title, and then how do you employ restorative practices in your work? If you don't, how might you? And also, what are the benefits of incorporating these practices in your field of work? So for me, for 4 years, I was a juvenile probation counselor, and when I learned about restorative justice versus retributive justice being, along the beliefs that incarceration changes behavior, and a lot of the studies that I've read, it doesn't, and a lot of personal experiences I've had with a lot of youth. I began to do my journey of restorative work. And how I started to apply it was, first was the belief that, our kids and our families have dignity and value, and that every family has issues. And so that was one of the things where, I began to see the shift from families, even parents leaning on me to be able to be the muscle for their kid and to get their kid and enact and make sure they're acting right and all that stuff, and like just shifting that to like, hey, like this is a family issue, that I can be a support to, but this isn't a justice issue. This isn't a system issue, you know. And so I began to kind of redirect families when they would come to me, leaning on me for some type of correction of their kids' actions. So that was kind of like the first thing where I started to see. And then after being trained in restorative circles and such, I've been able to implement those for a lot of the youth that I served, along with their families. And some of that was just reunification and kind of just families being able to communicate the things that they need, as well as the youth being able to address their needs and being able to bring the family back together. And just giving that power back to youth and families' lives that systems have taken away from them. So that was how I started. And then I also began to get trained in mediation, to where I was able to do parent-youth mediations as well. And so the benefits that I've seen is just that I've seen that people have really felt like they had a positive experience with the justice system, you know, and that was just through me using restorative practices and me working with them. And they a lot of families thanked me and everything. And it was just like, you could just see that hope reinstilled in them for their kids and their family. And you could see that dignity and that power was given back to them that the justice system normally takes away from people. And the benefits for me is just like, you know, I mean, I've been able to see the logs in my own eye, you know, and being able to talk to the youth and like being like, hey, man, like I used to do some stuff too, man. Like, and I'm in no place to judge you. You know, you have dignity, you know, you have worth, you have value, you have things to add to this world. And so those were some of the benefits. Currently, I work in tribal child welfare for the Suquamish tribe, and this belief that families can be restored, that parents can be restored, parents can you know, turn things around and not just giving up on them. So that's been very dominant in my mind when I'm doing the work in tribal child welfare. It's like, okay, like, you know, families make mistakes, parents make mistakes, my parents made mistakes, but just the belief that they can be restored and that they can, and the hope that they can, you know, develop positive relationships with their children and everything. And so those are some of the things that I've seen and the benefits that I've seen from doing this work. And I'm going to pass it to Eva.
Okay, so the work that I do is a little bit different from kind of what many of you have been talking about. And one of the pieces that resonated with me today is what Carolyn shared, just the visual of that we're all part of the circle. And when somebody is pulled away from the circle, that void remains. And so how do we close that circle? Otherwise it remains a gap. And when we're talking about kids and education and adults in the system, the educational system, which has been punitive for so many years, and punitive when it comes to little tiny kids like kindergartners, first graders, because we don't know what we do when we see big behaviors, to high schoolers who it was often, I'm thinking when I was an assistant principal at Bremerton High School many years ago, it was system, not just here. I've been all over the Kitsap County and international, like I shared earlier. Exclusion was the only answer that sadly never solved the thing. Yet we continue to lean into it and do it until very recently. And thinking back to what Karen shared with Ubuntu and this concept of I am because we are, or I am because you are, and the fact that we are all interconnected and that cannot be denied. And whenever somebody is pushed out, without repair, the community is never whole. There's just more damage to that same community. And so in the educational system where we as adults often do what was done to us and what we have seen done and what we have been trained to do, which is very much leaning into behaviorist approaches, shifting those mindsets to move towards restoration and inclusion rather than punishment and retribution, like really going away from that third party prescriptive consequence and decision making to resolutions that involve the party that may have harmed the community, and really away from external control to internal control. The answer is within our community, and whatever has happened needs to be solved within our community. And then stepping back, we call it the upriver approach, to not solving the harm, but really building a community that is so strong that harm is minimized. And so that's where we're at. So what we are doing in our system, and I'm going back to the question, it's really hard to stick with a question. How do you employ restorative practices in your work? We are really leaning into the circles in our system, circles with adults during staff meetings, and really recognizing one of the things that we talk about a lot in schools right now is that these are challenging times. I recognize it's not just in schools, but in the world, in our communities outside of our work environments. In schools, this feeling of overwhelm, which we've kind of calibrated our definition to, like, today was really hard and tomorrow will be just as hard, makes it challenging to see much hope. And so the community amongst adults is what helps us see hope when we have time to think and reflect and talk and support each other, because unwell adults are not going to be well there, are not going to be able to support kids, and kids are walking into our schools with a lot of trauma, more than we have seen ever before. And so we're meeting in circles. When we could meet around the table, we take the table out and we're meeting in circles as adults, whether it's administrators or teachers. We just recently on Wednesday had circles at Bremerton High School with staff, and all day ran circles with students, and similar is happening at Mountain View Middle School. All the way, in all of our elementary schools, the day starts with, we call it morning meetings, but it really is a carpet circle that has a specific structure to it. And without exception, when we begin with usually a 2-word check-in, which is a couple of emotions that you're feeling at the moment at the beginning, people are tired and stressed and exhausted. They sometimes use different words. By the time we're done with the circle, people are seeing hope. The words are energized, excited. With kids, the words become curious. They want to see what happens next, because this is new. And when we run circles with kids, there is always a commitment to addressing one aspect that we all identify has been top of mind for that particular group of kids in a circle. And we make sure that whatever is brought up is addressed within a week, because we know that kids in these proactive circles need to see change quickly. And that is what's going to bring more of a voice and agency within that school community. But the change is slow, yet at the same time, the hope of what can be that I have seen just since the beginning of this year to now is extraordinary, quite frankly. When I walk the hallways of Bremerton High, I don't walk down a hallway where a kid doesn't come, Ms. Scott, when is our next circle? Ms. Scott, when is our next circle? And I'm not the only one running circles. So we're seeing hope, we're seeing shift, and we're seeing change, and that is powerful because, like I said, when we first opened up, our goal in our school is to really eliminate exclusion, because exclusion leads to disconnection. And without connection, our kids are not going to be able to thrive, despite or regardless what big behaviors might come up. And we've worked, I'm just so grateful for our school board, for Kitsap Strong, dispute resolution, especially Sue. And we worked with Sue to help us repair some big things that have happened between kids that stem from adult disagreements in the community, often parents, and our hope is that the more connected, well, it's not a hope, it's a vision that's going to become real. We want every one of our kids and our adults to feel connected to our schools. That sense of belonging is going to be so strong because we're going to continue to communicate and support each other and really lean into that concept. Again, going back to Karen of Ubuntu, it's like I am because we are, and I am because you are, and without you, I am no one. So, and the last piece is, what are the benefits? I think the benefits is greater connection and less exclusion, so that down the road, those of you that are in the criminal justice system somehow will maybe not even have a job to do. So anyhow, I will pass it on to Karen.
Hey, everyone. This is some juicy conversation because we need to have this type of connection, community, bringing our voices and villaging. When we talk about practices and being restorative, we have to understand that we have to do it. We have to engage in restorative practice. And we've got to get to know one another. We've got to build one another up. This work is rooted in accountability. It's rooted in relationship. It's also a restorative conversations. We have to be intentional with the language that we use. This is peacemaking. As we begin to come together, these are practices that every culture, grandmas, grandfathers, elders, our ancestors practice villaging and coming together. When things began to break down, they would call the entire village together so that they could deal with these issues, and they dealt with it in a healthy way. And that wasn't to say that they didn't hold the individual accountable, but the entire village would come, and what they would do. And like I said, every culture has these restorative practices. We have to begin to go back to the old ways of our ancestors to be able to make our communities whole and healthy. And we talk about in other cultures, the Hispanic different, they talk about the apapacho, which means that you have to hug with the soul. That means you're concerned about the health and spiritual well-being of that human being and bringing them back into that restorative state. Even though the breach has taken place, we want our entire community to be healthy, because if we don't, then we know that the discord in the breach will continue to manifest. It'll get out of control because it wasn't dealt with. We didn't restore them in a healthy way. So when we're talking about the ministries of reconciliation and the ministries of restoration and reconciling and being able to bring these things in, we have to practice them. We can't just talk about them. We have to begin to walk in them. We have to begin to do them, because so many times we identify the harm, but we don't walk into the restorative practices that will address that harm. So as we begin to talk about how we will begin to do the work and how we do it, we have to shift the language even. The language has to be shifted from punitive to restorative. the accountability to repair that harm, understand what was broken, understanding what the issues were. And you can only do that when you begin to village, when you begin to circle. That's why they say circle, but that's villaging. That's coming and bringing everybody to the table that needs to be at the table, whether it was mom, dad, brother, sister, community member, whatever. We're going to village and we're going to bring our community together, and we're going to, one of the things that was said, eliminate exclusion. When you exclude, what you do is you silence instead of being able to communicate about these things. And then we work in a punitive, we have a punitive nation here. We've got to shift and transform and begin to renew and begin to change that mindset to a restorative. And we have to practice it. They're not going to get it overnight. This thing has to be, you got to begin to shift that narrative back to a restorative practice. So all of the things that are being said, we've got to continue to have these conversations, because our goal is to perfect them. And our goal is to bring them back in so that they're being healed and made whole, and they become a part again to the community. Because we don't want to isolate, and we don't want to work in ways that continue to perpetuate the harm. And we've got to look at our own selves in all of this as well. It's just not the individual that has done the harm, but how we will restore. And so with that being said,
there were 3 of us, and it was just.
Can somebody mute whoever that, all right.
I will pass it on to Ms. Carolyn.
Okay, wow. You always make me sort of have to sit for a minute and digest everything you said. Beautiful. So I think Janelle and Chris really explained beautifully how the Welcome Home program employs the philosophy of the circle as both healing and restorative. So I'm not going to say a lot more about that, because hopefully I am part of that program and that philosophy. But I do want us to think for a minute about the difference between relations and relationships. And I touched upon that a little earlier. I had a teacher who was teaching me the 16 aspects of Wakantanka. It's a Lakota teaching. And the first aspect, or the second aspect, is Shkan, sacred movement. And I was told to go in my backyard every morning and connect with Shkan. And of course, in Native American culture, teaching is more experiential than anything. So you don't ask a lot of questions. We say you have 2 ears and 2 eyes and 1 mouth for a reason. You'll learn more if you just pay attention. So I was out in the backyard morning after morning, and pretty soon I'm hearing the birds and I'm noticing the movement, the sacred movement in the trees and everything. And then I started thinking about relations, because in Lakota they say matakweasan, which means all my relations. And that's a common expression you'll hear when going into ceremony and so forth. And so anyway, every morning I'm out there, and I'm fortunate to live in the trees, and I'm sort of doing the Queen's wave to the trees, oh, my relatives, oh, matakweasan, matakwe. And one morning I realized that that's what I was doing, kind of this Queen wave. And I looked at a tree and I thought, what do I know about that tree? I didn't even know the name of that tree. And I realized, recognizing that we're all relatives is not enough. And I think that Karen and Domingo both talked about this too, is the why, if we're in relationship with people, we have responsibility. And I think that, one of the benefits of the restorative circle is that it's not just a one-way street for the person who has, committed a crime. It's a two-way street, and it benefits everybody in the circle, an opportunity to express empathy and compassion and understanding, and become more proactive in supporting people in a way that's meaningful to them and help walk them back into the circle. that Domingo said, that why, we have to uncover the why of the situation. And I follow Dr. Bruce Perry. I don't know if you're familiar with him, but he wrote a book with Oprah Winfrey called What Happened to You, Not What Is Wrong with You. And, that just sticks in my head because it's such an opportunity for people to tell our stories, not just, the person that the circle is for, but everyone's story, and to really hear everybody's story. And for us to realize that as the listener and the person that is trying to, maybe even who's the victim, is that we have a responsibility as well to shift who we are and how we've approached what's happened to us and how we're looking at the person that maybe committed a crime against us. So anyway, with that, I will pass it to Larry.
Hi. How I react to this is that I've been looking for you for a really long time. I've been looking for you, Jan, Elliot. I've been looking for you, John, Quitzlin. I've been looking for you, Janelle. I've been looking for you, Daryl. And the way that I've been looking for you is that as I was a young person going through school, I wasn't going to complete the 7th grade. It just wasn't going to happen. And I got lucky and I got to go to an alternative school in Olympia. It was in a house. There was 15 to 30 kids, and sometimes we got money from the Grateful Dead to survive. But every Friday, I didn't know I was doing a restorative justice circle, but every Friday, each one of us got to pick the classes that we wanted. We got to decide whether other students who weren't coming to school were included. We got to have this Friday meeting. And basically, it's kind of formed the basis of who I was through that schooling experience, which taught me that it was about me and about my inquisitiveness. I was able to go to college at 16 at Evergreen. I was able to go to law school at 20. I was able to become a trial lawyer. And when I became a trial lawyer, the thing that I wanted to do the most was to go into a courtroom and break a witness over my knee. Bam! So that even before my closing argument was done, you knew that I was winning the case. Well, as a public defender, you got to do that maybe 12 times a year. As a public defender, you don't get to pick your cases. So maybe you'd win 3. So that meant for 12 people, you're putting in all this work. But I had all these other clients, and it's really hard work. And so I got burned out, and I went to juvenile court. And when I went to juvenile court, I was with the kids, and the kids would tell me, I just want to go home. I just want to go home. And in order to go home, you had to figure out what was the issue, what was the why. And then I had an epiphany that my real work wasn't, just for that 12, but my real work was to make sure that each client made it home, whether it was domestic violence, whether it was a sexual assault, whether it was drugs and alcohol. And so as I got to do more juvenile work, and juvenile drug court was amazing. I came back to my adult court work, and the same thing. My clients just had something that was preventing them from going home. And so it's amazing that this program that's in Kitsap County is welcoming people back and welcoming home. There's nothing better than a dinner invitation. And so to me, that's what every person in the criminal justice system needs, no matter what they've done, no matter whether I'm just going to go out, no matter whether they're a murderer, a sex offender. It's what Janelle said, it's how we treat those who we believe are the least is what makes the most out of us. And so that disconnection, I did a lot of sex offense work. I was really good at it because I connected with people. I connected with my clients. I hate registration laws because they disconnect people from where they need to be, which is with us. People need to be with us and sharing their life stories and all of those things, because when they think that they are the other, then we don't want 2 separate societies. We want one. And I want a society with each one of you I've been looking for you, and my role on my day job is what I'm looking for is where can we put our mouth where our money is, and turn these resources so that young people and all folks can be involved in some way, shape, or form in restorative justice. Thanks. I'll turn it over to Ron.
Hello, my name is Ron Harding, and I'm the Chief of Police for the City of Paulsbo Police Department. I do apologize for being so late. I had some unavoidable things occur overnight in a windstorm that I had to fix, but I'm grateful to be here. And I guess the way I'd answer this is that for me, restorative, the concept began with me in college. My first career, I was a pastor. And what drew me into my particular church was the experience of being restored to community through grace. And so that was my calling. I felt that I would do the most good in this world if I could preach that message and help people who were lost and disconnected find hope and find restoration. Through circumstances I won't go into, I wound up leaving ministry, but entered law enforcement, which is an interesting career change because in law, there is no grace. If you just have law, there's only punishment. And I have to say that right now in society, I think we have an opportunity, those of us that are professional law enforcement practitioners, to see a huge change in what law enforcement has been, and to move into the system of restorative practice, because that's the only answer. For almost 30 years, I've seen the justice system, incarcerate people, and all of it, as people have already mentioned, comes from a premise of punishment. And if you only punish without restoration, you will only produce recidivism. It only lends to a vicious cycle that traps people in behaviors that they don't really want to be in. And the answer is not more punishment. The answer is to help them find coping skills and community and meaning in their life in a way that they can be freed from destructive behaviors. I think law enforcement's a necessary piece of that, but we're finally starting to see glimmers of change and glimmers of hope that really what we can be as a catalyst to move people out of the trap of a lifestyle they're in and into restorative systems. And that's the excitement that I think we face right now, is that we have partnerships beginning to develop that we've never seen before. Because we've recognized that law without grace or incarceration just to punish will never change someone's life, and it will never help society. And I'm pleased that society is seeing that, and law enforcement is beginning, the way I guess we're applying that in Paulsbo is to give our officers a broader vision for what they do. Their job is not just to go out and to take reports and to put together cases and to try and build enough evidence to file a charge. That's part of their job, and society still asks us to do that. But the bigger part of their job is every day an opportunity to be a catalyst for someone who wants help. And we have a narrative now, or a navigator system. We have an after-hours success coach and partnerships that we've been able to start to develop. And I think that the chance for us to keep moving in that direction so that we really can actually make a difference in our communities is greater than it's ever been. So that's how I hope to implement the principles of this kind of practice. I need to grow in it more to understand it better. But I think that the whole field is opening up, and we're beginning to understand that the answers are in coming together as I think Larry just said, as one society, taking away the walls so that we can all work toward a goal of helping. That's really what I'm hoping to see. And with that, I'll pass to Sue.
Thanks, Ron. I'm just gonna interject really quick. I just want to say I appreciate you, Chief Harding and Chief Amaral, and your work with the Welcome Home Project. I've worked with a lot of law enforcement, and y'all being open and actually developing that partnership just says a lot. So we're going to go ahead and go to breakout. I think we're going to go to break and then breakout rooms. We have one more question for the circle, and this is going to be more testimonial questions of stories of how we've seen these practices impact our lives or someone else we know's lives. And then we're going to have some time for Q&A as well. So I'm going to go ahead and pass it to, is Susie or Dion, are y'all doing this transition or am I doing this transition?
Thank you, Daryl and the circle. That was so meaningful. This is Susie Beal. I'm the Vice Chair of the Council for Human Rights and Chair of the Conference Committee. And we're just so grateful for you, Daryl, and all of you in that circle and the wisdom you're sharing with us. And one of the workshops that will start in a few minutes will be a continuation of that conversation and time for question and answer, some Q&A with them as well. If you want to keep going with them, then we encourage you to do that. But we are going to take a break. It's 11:25 right now, which is the time we set out to start our workshops, but I think we need a break. And so Elizabeth